Well, hello everyone. Hello everyone. Welcome and aloha. My name is Keith Nishida. I use he/him pronouns, and I'm currently the National Program Director for NAAAP Pride. Just so you know, NAAAP Pride is a program by the North American Association of Asian Professionals, also known as NAAP. And we're here to empower, educate, engage, and probably most importantly right now in this time of day, in this time and age, to celebrate the Asian Pacific Islander LGBTQ professional community and its allies. How do we do that? By providing education, promoting visibility, and developing current and future LGBTQ leaders. Now today, oh,
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay,
good.
great.
Go on. I just muted.
Interception. Okay. Well, we without further ado, we want to welcome you to this event, this very special event. Let's have a tea party, which is a NAAP 40 and NAAP Pride event. So if you haven't done so already, we encourage you to pour yourself a cup of tea while I give you the tea on this evening's event. First off, I want to acknowledge that I'm enjoying this right here. Oh, you can't see it. Right here. I poured myself a cup of, today, I'm enjoying some Numi tea, specifically the Rooibos, the organic Rooibos mellow South African brew. And I'm enjoying it in a cup from Helsinki. And yes, important to note that this Numi tea was generously provided by our tea sponsor for tonight, Numi Organic Tea. So thank you, Numi Organic. Okay, so we're so honored and pleased to have three amazing special guests today representing the API and LGBTQ space in children's literature. This event has been a year in the making. I kid you not, a year in the making. And before I pass it over to our MC, our lovely MC, I have a few housekeeping announcements. This is a reminder that though this event will be recorded for internal purposes, you are always welcome to shut off your video to not be in the recording, and that if you have any questions, you may be quoted for future marketing purposes by NAAP Pride. We also want to make sure that this is an inclusive space, that everyone feels comfortable. So please show respect for our speakers and other participants at all times. All right, so without further ado, I have the pleasure of introducing Noelle Blanco, my right-hand woman, and the MC for tonight. Kick it off.
Audience goes wild. No, I'm just kidding. Hello. I know everyone's muted for a good reason, but thank you. Thank you, Keith Nishida. I love being on your team at NAAP Pride. I love everybody here at NAAP Pride, and I'm so excited for this event, everyone. Oh my gosh. Okay. I am also drinking Numi organic green tea, jasmine green tea. It has caffeine in it, and I've had 2 cups of caffeine already, so this is how I'll be talking for most of the event. Just totally caffeinated up. As Keith Nishida said, I am Noelle Blanco. I'm on the NAAP Pride team. I am happy to get to share the space with our guests today. Also, I do go by she, her, they pronouns. I do identify as queer Asian American, and this event today really will be a focus on very specific as well as very inclusive identities and in the realm of children's literature. So I will be emceeing today, and I get to introduce Alister Felix, Karen Chan, and Lyla Lee today. John, if you want to go ahead up with slide 2, we're going to switch over to our slide deck. So even though Keith said that if you would like to shut off your cameras and you don't want to be in the recording, please do so. Honestly, most of the event, it will be the presentation as well as the authors who will actually be on the slides or will be shown here. So these are their lovely faces, and this is the order we will go in. So in order to give, just also one extra housekeeping thing, in order to give enough time for each one of our guests to share about their experiences and share their books, we will not be taking questions until the end. There will be a short tea refresher break after each of our guests go and share. And then we will have a panel part in which everyone can ask their questions by chat or go off mute if you'd like. But in the meantime, if you do have questions for our authors, Anthony from our team will also be grabbing those questions from the chat, and then we will be asking them to the authors during that panelist part. Perfect. So So without further ado, as we like to say, I get to introduce Alister Felix, and he will be sharing his book with us as well as about his publishing and writing journey. Alister.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hello.
Hi. So I'm Alister Felix. I use he, him pronouns. I like to say by day, I am a designer in the video games industry, and by night, I'm a children's book author. But yeah, like on top of that, I also mentor young designers on the side of the importance of, representation and inclusive design. And fun fact about me is I'm a dancer on a hip hop dance team. But yeah, I guess I'll jump right into reading my book.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's let's go Yumta. So do you see the cups being filled with hot tea? The steam rises, up, up, up. That's me, by the way, the kid with the bowl haircut. Do you hear the dishes clattering on the cart? The food is coming, clank, clank, clank. Do you smell what's in the steaming baskets? Oh, it smells so good. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Sikfala, it's time to eat. Do you hear the lazy Susan spinning so fast? What will you get this time? Squeak, squeak, squeak. Here you go, my precious. It's siumai. See how this siumai wears yellow pants with orange polka dots? Yum, yum, yum. The lazy Susan is spinning once more. What will you get this time? Squeak, squeak, squeak. Here you go, my love. It's Hagao. Hagao is a purse filled with the sea. The lazy Susan is spinning like a top. What will you get this time? Squeak, squeak, squeak. And it's a cliffhanger. But yeah, that's some of my book. Let's go, Yumcha.
Thank you, Alister. So if y'all want to hear how the book ends, you have to buy the book, which all that information is on our event page. It is a much longer book. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually not, but it is a beautiful picture book like this. And to see the rest of the book, you have to buy it and gift it to all of your friends. So Alister, thank you so much for reading your book. If you'd like to tell us, we would love for you to share some tea with us.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us what tea you're sharing with us today, and then tell us the tea on your writing and your publishing journey.
All the tea. So as you know, I work in the video game industry, so everything has to be video game related. So I'm drinking out of my Pokeball cup. Also drinking Numi tea, but doing the turmeric tea. That's a little different. I heard all the health benefits. Helps with anti-inflammatory, not so puffy in the face, But yeah, it's a little bit about my book. The book, I wrote it actually for myself. It's more of a love letter to the child me. And the reason why I wrote about dim sum and the experience of Yamcha is because I have it's like a memory I had as a kid growing up. I'm actually originally from Canada. I lived in Hong Kong for a bit of my life, and now I'm in San Francisco, working in tech. And the memory I have as a kid was, having dim sum every Saturday, and my grandparents were the ones that would go early to the restaurant to get a table for us. And obviously they're there to get the senior discount dim sum first, and then they'll wait for us to get for everyone else to get there. And that was such a good time to catch up with my extended family, with my cousins, with my aunts. I do miss a lot of that. And I think there was growing up having to moved away from Canada and away from Hong Kong, and now, as an adult in San Francisco, I don't get to experience that as much anymore. And hence the meaning of it. I feel like it was such a love language for me because, I felt like growing up, I don't think my parents have ever said "I love you" to me, but it was like through food that was how they would show that love to me. So it's almost like, a frozen memory. And part of me, like I felt, growing up, I felt very ashamed of my culture because I was trying to assimilate. As I was saying, I moved around a lot. I felt like I needed to fit in. Like there's like many moments of me being in school, which is very similar to Karen's book. What's that? That I had those exact memories of, bringing, fried rice or chow mein to lunch and being laughed at, being like making those oh, like what are you eating? Those like oh, that smells gross or looks gross. That was like very ingrained in my childhood. So I think growing up, I was very ashamed of who I was and where I came from. And more of the reason why I wrote this book was because it's basically myself. Like I was saying, the kid is me. I also had that bowl haircut growing up. And there's actually, Cantonese words in there, and it's basically kind of like pinyin for Mandarin, but for Cantonese, it's called Yut Ping. And that's actually how I learned Cantonese growing up. And I'm ashamed to say now that, I lost some of my Cantonese. I only speak Cantonese to my mom. But, that's growing up, that's how I learned Cantonese. And I really wanted to put that into the book. And the whole experience is just like, the whole dim sum experience is such a sensual, real experience where there's like the sounds of it, the smells of it. That's all I wanted to include. But yeah, was there another thing I had to answer? It was like why I wrote the book, who the book was for, and
There's no like exact prompts. It's really to share about the book.
Just like me talking about it. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. No, you're doing Gael, so you have a couple more minutes. Actually, yeah, like you wrote it for you, right? You wrote it for young Alister and the bowl haircut.
Young Alister. Yeah,
young Alister and the
exactly.
bowl haircut. Maybe if you'd like to, I can prompt you. Maybe if you'd like to share some of the feedback that you got, and it could be positive, it could be negative, it could be everything in between.
Yeah.
Just, I would love, I'm sure our audience would love to hear about that.
Of course, yeah. So when I originally finished writing the manuscript, I was trying to go the traditional route, and I was getting rejected left and right. I kept getting, you need to change the title that's more, more English. And for me, because this was written from my life, I felt like so unseen. Like I was like, why are you rejecting who I was? And it brought back a lot of the feelings I had when I was a kid, being rejected, from the food, that I brought to school. And it was a very hard journey, I think. And that's the reason why more so I went the self-publishing route, was because I felt like I got to be in control with everything. And hence, working with the illustrator, I actually sent a photo of me to the illustrator and be like, can you please at least illustrate me as the kid? I actually grew up also very androgynous. I actually, wore a lot of my sister's clothes just for fun. And though it was really important for me to have the character also androgynous, I wanted, whoever you were as a kid, you get to see yourself in this book as well. But with that, after launching the book, I was finished with it. I was like, you know what, I'm done. I put it, on my website, on Amazon, and my partner was like, you need to share with the world, to share with social media. You need to, post it. So I posted on LinkedIn, on Instagram, the usual, and it went viral on LinkedIn. And, people were commenting, being like, oh my God, like, I wish I had this book as a kid. I love that, you kept true to yourself. You had Cantonese words in it. And, through that support, thinking back when I was trying to go to the traditional route, they're saying there's no market for this. But I was like, I am this market. like, why don't you see me? But from all the support I was getting from the post, I was just like, I finally feel seen, you know. And it was such a, you know, circle moment of just like me conquering, you know, my shame that way and reclaiming food, you know, and what it means for me as a person. And I love that I got to tell my story, and people can relate to it. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful all around story.
That's awesome, Alister. Thank you so much for sharing that. I did see some awesome comments and questions pop up in the chat, but y'all are just gonna have to wait until the end. But Alister gave us a nice little taste of his book, and just y'all are gonna hear me say this over and over again because I am just full of joy and love for these amazing authors and everyone being here. But Alister, thank you. Like,
of course, yeah.
Thank you for bringing this into the world. Now I'm gonna clap it. Thank you. We have an inside joke about that at Pride about clapping your words. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this book with the world. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. We look forward to talking to you and getting to ask you all the juicy more questions at the end. At this time, I'm going to move to Karen Chan. So silent round of applause for Alister. Muted round of applause. Thank you, Alister. Karen Chan, what tea? Hello, welcome. Welcome officially.
Thank you.
Ms. Karen Chan, what tea are you sharing with us today?
I am drinking rooibos. I never know how to pronounce it. I think that's how you say it.
Rubios. Yeah, I've heard it many ways.
I don't know, but you all know the tea I'm talking about because it's the one that no one can pronounce. So it's very delicious.
Yes, provided by Numi Organic Teas.
Yes. So should I just jump right in?
Yes, please share about yourself, about your identities, and then of course about Glue Books, and then we'll jump right into your book. And after you're done reading, you can follow Alister's lead, or you can take it a different route, however you'd like.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me, and I can attest that Alister's book is so cute. I have it. I love it. My kids love it. So definitely go get it. But my name is Karen Chan. I am Chinese American. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an ally of the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm so thrilled that you guys invited me to talk about my book that I wrote called What's That? It's a picture book, children's book that came out, was published in November. And I started a publishing company at the same time. It's basically published under my publishing company called Glue Books. And we make books for a more inclusive, just, and compassionate future. I'll jump into a little bit more about my company after I do a short reading, which I can start now from the book. When noon arrived, he couldn't wait to eat his homemade treat, but he noticed other lunches on his way to find a seat. Everyone had sandwiches like ham or turkey brie. No one had a lunch like his as far as he could see. Mia cheered with Kevin, peanut butter is the best. That's when Jax began to wish he had the same lunch as the rest. His food stuck out amid a sea of deli meat and bread. Then his heart sank deeper when he heard what others said. What is that? Ew, that looks weird. Hesitant to eat, he sat there feeling quite alone. When Mina asked, what's that? In a kind and eager tone, Jax described each item, showing Mina this and that. When it came to things he liked, the boy could really chat. We make these pancake sundaes just as soon as I'm awake, but not the fluffy kind you stack in layers like a cake. Nai rolls the dough real thin and brushes them with oil. I scatter onions on the top and shape each in a coil. One by one, we cook them in a red-hot frying pan until each pancake's toasted to a perfect shade of tan. Mina was surprised. She had a swirly pancake too. Paratha's brushed with ghee had a flaky buttered chew. Mina boldly poured some dal atop a mound of rice, fragrant from some curry leaves and mustard seeds and spice. My favorite times are cooking with my mama in the kitchen. She says sharing food is how we celebrate tradition. The food we eat is who we are, like clothing, skin, or hair. Then Mina scooped up dal and rice without a single care.
And if you loved that book. You're gonna have to buy Karen's book. Karen, I
Yes.
totally had an onion pancake after doing this presentation too. I was like, I am hankering for a nice, oily, crispy onion
Right?
pancake. Makes me so
The oil,
hungry.
the more oily, the better.
And then I like to put salt on mine too. Is that odd? Does anyone else do that? Like salt it up?
No, I dip mine in soy sauce. So.
Oh, it's so good if you dip it in chook too. I've totally dipped it inside chook. That's a lot. But Alister made that point earlier that food is how we share our story. It's how we are as a community, as an API community. Karen, thank you so much for sharing your book. If you would like to tell us more about your journey and obviously the specific route that you took founding Glue Books while you were writing your book. So definitely tell us about who you wrote your book for, even though I kind of know the answer to that, why you wrote the book, and then how your publishing journey turned into creating Glue Books.
Sure, yeah. So just as background for me, I live in Los Angeles. I am a corporate attorney by training. I worked at a law firm for many years. I probably, like many people working in corporate America, or maybe some people working in corporate America, just felt really stuck there. I really wanted to do something creative. I've always wanted to start my own business. That's always sort of been in my plans. And so, especially after having, children, it really kind of made me reevaluate sort of how much time I was kind of spending at work and at the office on late nights and weekends. So I thought, you know what, if I'm gonna have to spend this much time, working, I want to work for myself. So that was always in the plans to begin with. But my journey with writing a book actually really began, as my oldest son, he's now 3, but we read books all the time, right? As a new parent, you're constantly reading picture books to your kids. And I had a hard time finding books with characters that looked like him in it. And it got me thinking to, back when I was growing up, I mean, really, I can't remember a single book I read when I was little that had Asian Americans featured as the main characters that weren't just horrendously racist. To be really honest, there's one in particular that I'm thinking about. But even in his day and age, I think children's literature has come a long way in terms of diversity and inclusivity, but we still have a long way to go. I really could not find a book with a main character Asian American boy in it. And so I started looking into the industry and kind of the statistics and, how diversity and representation of the characters was really bad. But then also, if you look at sort of the creators and the authors and illustrators, those issues kind of go up from there. And if you keep going up into sort of the creation of the book and the gatekeepers and the people who are the ones who are deciding whether to greenlight certain projects, these are, marketing people, PR people at publishing houses, execs, they're the ones who are really the gatekeepers of what kind of content is marketable and what content they think will be successful. And I thought, I can try and knock on doors to try to get this, story published, or I can just create my own table and, with that, allow other people to have a seat at the table as well. So for me, the whole idea of starting Glue Books and a publishing company, an inclusive publishing company, really came with, writing this book, seeing what the publishing industry status quo was like, and really wanting to challenge that in a way that was really fundamentally different than just saying, I want to put a book out there. So I started Glue Books. I published this book. It was such an incredible journey to write this. Basia Tran, who is a Polish Vietnamese woman, she illustrated this. It was really fantastic working with her. And she did obviously a wonderful job. And a little backtracking, to the story and the impetus for writing this. I think, like Alister said, I think a lot of us in the Asian American community, whether we are immigrants or, first generation, have a similar story where we feel like, the foods that we eat or parts of our culture might not be either outright ridiculed or that we might be a little bit ashamed of it. And it might happen through small microaggressions in our childhood, right? That we feel like, oh, I'm embarrassed about this, and I don't really know why, but I'm embarrassed about my food. And so that was kind of the sort of starting point for this book. But I didn't want the book to be about, I know the clip that I had read to you was sort of about, you know, him feeling kind of embarrassed about his food. But the book goes on to really celebrate kind of who you are. And so more than anything, I wanted the book to be about finding opportunities to connect with other people, even though they might not look like you, they might not come from your same culture. So there's a lot of different layers and themes. And then kind of to Alister's point earlier, I think, you know, Asian culture, we express our love a lot through food. And there's sort of this intergenerational component to it, because his grandmother that prepares him his lunch, and he normally loves his grandmother's food. So yeah, there's just a lot of themes that I think are really relevant to Asian Americans. And funny enough, actually, after this came out, so many people who aren't Asian Americans that had the same comment, and they said, oh my gosh, you know, I'm Jewish or I'm Armenian, and I had the same exact thing growing up. I was really embarrassed. My friends would come over to my house because, you know, we use a lot of herbs and our whole kitchen would smell really stinky. Or, you know, I, you know, was so embarrassed to bring matzah bread to school, or, you know, when my mom would pack it for me. So there is a universality to it, but I do think food is the ultimate bridger. You know, you could come from a completely different background and experience, and if you share food together, like what a wonderful way to connect with somebody. So yeah, you'll have to get the book to see sort of how that all plays out. But yeah, that's sort of my journey. And with Blue Books, it's been really exciting. We're publishing other authors, other creators who have a story to tell. That's always sort of been my focus, because I think these kind of issues are really, really important to have children exposed to. So not only the issue of like diversity and inclusion, but also issues that are going to impact children for a long time to come. So things like talking about climate change or voting rights, or anything that I feel, you know, really has there's a good way to sort of talk about these issues in a way that's empowering and educational and entertaining for children. So we are working on new titles that are going to be coming out. There's one coming out at the end of this year with Michelle Lee, who is a journalist, and I don't know if you guys ever saw, it was sort of a bit of a viral moment for her where the hashtag Very Asian came from. Yes, mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're writing a book together about Korean food, which has been so fun and also makes me very hungry. And we're working with just a bunch of different really cool authors. And so I have so much to say about starting your own business and the publishing industry, but probably way more time than I have. So if there are any questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer them. I could talk about that all day. So.
Awesome, Karen. Yes, we did have some questions come up about publishing. We can absolutely talk about that, because I want to hear from each one of you. Like I said, as you're all finding out, everyone took a very different path in the publishing journey specifically, and the chat is just like blowing up, asking questions like, oh, I have questions about publishing. And it's such a cool thing, I will say too, because I know all of you are talking and you can't see the chats as quickly as I can, but it's really amazing to see how many people are not just interested in your journey, but like are inspired, right? Like, to say the least, yeah. Inspired, like y'all are trailblazers, you know, like you're doing it. And it's such I will say too, Keith and I talked about this when we were courting each of you, that you all knew each other because the community is small, and there's so many more books now than when we were kids. But like you said, Karen, there is so much more we can talk about. I mean, it's on the table. It's on the Lazy Susan table, Aleister. Like, it's like, let's just keep spinning around and getting more food on the table, because there's just so many more things we could talk about and, dare I say, dismantle in this culture, and not just API culture, right? That's my 2 cents. I just wanted to play into that a little bit. Also, because I want to thank you, Karen. We will absolutely be hitting you up for more publishing information, and Hopefully, if we decide to do this event again, we can introduce some more books. I would love to hear about Michelle's book, and just put more
Absolutely.
emphasis on glue books. Anything else you want to say about any other upcoming? I mean, I think you did, but anything upcoming for glue books, or what you're looking for? I'll give that pitch. What you're looking for future authors and illustrators for glue books.
You know, it just has to be an authentic story, right? Like, it's all about authentic storytelling and compelling storytelling, and that all comes from our own experiences, comes from a really authentic place of, you know, whether it's shaped by our childhoods, our identities, whatever it is. So I would just say, you know, that's the kind of stuff I'm interested in publishing. And yeah.
I love that. Staying true to that. Thank you so much, Karen. We're going to get to talk to you again soon during our panelist part. Silent clap for Karen. And then go ahead and throw in your questions for Karen and our other authors. I am now going to introduce Lyla Lee. With Lyla Lee's book that we'll be talking about, she actually wrote several books, which you are absolutely can go into when you talk as well, Lyla. We will be focusing on one book today because, oh my gosh, we could go on and on about all the amazing books, you know, that you've written. But just to kind of segue it, Karen and Aleister's book just happens to both be about food, and as we all can tell based on the chat, food brings community together. And I would say, dare I say, in my own opinion, that food definitely brings non-POC people and non-API people identifying into the conversation. But once they're in the conversation, we also can talk about amazing more themes. And I will say, from a personal standpoint, Lyla, your one book, which you know which one, just when I got to tell Keith about it, I was like in tears because your character super resonates with me from your other book. And I'm gonna cry right now thinking about it. It's just amazing representation. I don't want to keep talking about it because I'm taking up Lyla's space, but I'm really excited for you to share yourself and share about your other books as well, and read Lyla's book is actually not a children, well, this one that we're sharing is not a children's book, so we won't be doing the pictures and elevating the illustrators, but oh gosh, okay, so Lyla, what tea are you sharing? I'll talk forever. Lyla, what tea are you sharing with us today?
Yeah, so I've definitely realized that, like, I think my journey is pretty different than everyone else because I'm traditionally published, but we'll get to that later. I'm Lyla. I'm the author of the Mindy Kim series, which is published in Simon Schuster and by Simon Schuster, and I'll be the one, which is the book that Noah was talking about, and Flip the Script, which is coming out next month. All these books have been published in the last 2 years. But yeah, I identify as bisexual. I'm Korean American. I'm also an immigrant since I came here when I was 5. And when I was growing up, I never really saw books about kids or teens who look like me. So a big part of my mission is to like have that representation out there for kids and teens of today to see that themselves in those stories that I write, and also other people write, like Karen and Alister. So the book I'm gonna read for you today is Flip the Script, and Flip the Script comes out next month. So with my, I've noticed that like with Alister and Karen, like they're both about food, which was kind of ironic, but also funny because my Mindy Kim series, the first book was also about like getting teased for the food that Mindy like brought for lunch. So I think it's a very common theme that we all share. But to switch gears a bit, the books that I'm going to share today in more detail are about K-pop and K-dramas. And the reason why I write books about K-pop and K-dramas is because when I was grew up in America and didn't see a representation in American media, K-pop and K-dramas were where I got my representation, where I felt seen, where I didn't feel like an other. And in this book in particular, Flip the Script, it's about a Korean American girl who gets scouted to be an actress in Seoul, Korea, and she actually gets cast as the lead role in the biggest K-drama of the year. And in order to keep things rolling with publicity and stuff, her team, she kind of gets pressured to fake date her male co-star, but she actually ends up falling in love with her female co-star, who happens to be her rival and longtime best friend from school instead. So the scene I'm going to read for you today has to do with a scene where Hannah, the main character, and Minji are on a date. And I think I should preface this by saying that LGBTQ issues and rights are very different. Or for example, to start off with, they don't exist simply in Korea because same-sex legal marriage is not legal. And Pride, it's more like a battle than like a celebration like it is here, because yeah, Pride is a thing, but things are still bad there to the point that there needs to be a heavy police presence just to keep people safe, because people show up to Pride just to attack people, and a lot of people, members of the queer community, they have to wear masks to keep their identities anonymous because they don't want it to like affect their careers. So yeah, the passage I'm reading for you today has to do with Minji and Hannah, who are on a date, and they see these straight hetero students, college students, who are like showing PDA and all affectionate, and they kind of get jealous because it's not something that they can do as like a non-hetero couple. So I'm gonna start reading the scene. We head to the register, but I linger behind Minji when one of the college students, the girl, exclaims, "Oppa, let's take a selfie together and go out for round 2 drinks." Her joy makes me smile. As I watch, she flings her arms around her boyfriend, who laughs and hugs her tight. Minji circles back to where I'm standing and glances at where I'm looking. "Aw," she whispers to me, "young love." Minji's comment makes me laugh, since the couple is definitely older than we are. The college students grab snacks from near the register and get in line in front of us. Even with the bags of chips in their hands, though, they still cling to each other and even share a few kisses, laughing and smiling. I can't help but feel a prickle of jealousy. If only I could be like that with Minji. PDA is generally frowned upon a lot more here than it is in the States, but is sometimes tolerated with hetero couples. It's almost unheard of for same-sex couples to be that overtly affectionate in public, though. Younger people like us are generally more open-minded and tolerant, but I still have no idea when queer couples will be fully accepted into Korean society. And I have no idea when LGBTQ plus rights will ever become a thing. I'm still caught up in my thoughts when we pay for our water bottles and leave the store. "Hey," Minji says, "are you okay?" "Oh, yeah, sorry, just have a lot on my mind." "Seems like it. Want to talk about it?" I'm about to tell Minji all about my frustrations when I have a sudden epiphany. I can't do anything to change laws or other people's views, but there's one thing I can do. "I think I'm going to break up with Brian," I say. "I mean, stop the fake relationship. It's bad enough that we can't ever be public about our relationship. I don't want to keep pretending that I'm dating someone else." Minji looks alarmed, but she quickly recovers. "You don't have to do that," she says in an even voice, "especially if keeping up the fake relationship is safer for you. What if the higher ups object and fans grow suspicious?" Those are definitely valid concerns. "Okay, I'll talk to Sophia about it," I say. "But if she says I can, I'm going to do it. I don't want you to have to see me holding hands with Brian and doing coupley things with him. I don't want to do those things with him. He's a nice guy and all, but he's not you. I should only have to act on screen." Minji gives my hand a tight squeeze. "Okay, I appreciate it, but I want what's safest for you, okay?" Her concern for me makes my heart ache. I feel so lucky to have her as my girlfriend. "Okay," I say. After making sure no one's looking, I give her forehead a kiss. So that's the scene. And should I jump in or?
Wow, thank you. I don't know if I'm the one speechless. That's such a great part in the book to pick, and thank you so much for sharing that. And then the matter of detail that you put in like her thoughts is so, I can't speak for anyone, but it resonates with me too. And it's interesting because it does kind of relate to food in the sense like you don't want to share this part about you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a
So-
lot of food on my book. And food plays a
Brings
very
us
important.
together.
My agent and my editor are always like, Lyla, you're making us so hungry. Because it's an important part of culture. Like
That's
I think all
amazing.
Asian cultures, we all revolve around food at some point.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. I am super excited to hear about your journey. If you want to share with everyone kind of like how you started writing, because you started really young writing before you decided to take off running, and then now you have all these books, like you said, in only 2 years. So of course we'll dive into more about like publishing later on, because there's so many questions coming up about it. But if you want
Right.
to talk about like when you started writing, how that the timeline journey of that, because you did get to share some of that with me and Keith, and I'm sure the audience would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So it took me 16 years total to get published. For context, I'm turning 28 tomorrow actually. So more than half my life. And I started writing books when I was in 4th grade because I had first of all, I was moving a lot as a kid, and books were my friends that I could take with me wherever I went. So I wanted to be an author since I was a young child. I didn't really, I was a kid, so I didn't really finish my first book until I was in 8th grade. And in 8th grade, we had the opportunity to research this one big topic and be experts on it before we left for high school. So this is in 8th grade. So, and I chose publishing because I was very ambitious, and I was like, oh, well, this could be my future career. So I might as well research about it. So I think the requirement was to spend 40 hours researching about it. So I spent 40 hours looking up stuff about publishing, how to get published. And what I found out was that to break into traditional publishing, you have to get an agent. And so I just like put up Gmail and was like sending emails to agents like, hey, I have this book and I'm in middle school. Can you publish my book? So I did that. Made a lot of mistakes. First of all, I was going by my middle school proofreading skills to edit my book. So I wasn't really rewriting my book. I was actually just proofreading, but I didn't know at the time. So fast forward through high school and college, I wrote about maybe 5 books total. Finished them. I mean, I wrote more, but finished 5. And ironically, by the time I was in senior college, I forgot to mention, I went to film school during that time. And as a senior in college, I was kind of thinking about, well, I tried this long trying to get published and I didn't have any luck. Maybe I should pursue other careers. And I was actually at a crossroads moment where I was thinking about, okay, should I just like use my connections to like break into Hollywood, or should I go to grad school to do for a PhD in psychology? But then some part of me was like, you know what? No, I had this childhood dream that I wanted to like see through, and coincidentally, in my senior year of college, I'd written like the script for one of my screenwriting classes, and I really loved the characters in that script. Because I think I should also preface this by saying that like college was a very important time period for me, because in college, when I was in college in 2014-ish, that's when the Reading Diverse Books movement happened in publishing, where there's a bigger push for more diverse books in children's literature. And also around the time, Fresh Off the Boat premiered on ABC. That was like one of the first TV shows about Asian American family on television. So I was inspired by all of that, and from the among the books that I'd written, all of them until that point in 2014 had been featuring characters, white characters, because I grew up in the 2000s and 2010s reading books by white people, about white people. So by the time I guess I was brainwashed in a way into thinking that like, oh, people aren't interested in books about like Asian people like me. So the book I wrote in college was actually my first book that had a more diverse cast. So I really wanted to convert the script into book and just try it out, just like see what happens, since I've already gotten rejected so many times. And lo and behold, I got my agent a month after I graduated from college. And then I was like, oh shoot, now I have to really like try out this thing. So I thought it would be easy from then on, but what actually ended up happening was getting the agent was happened to be the easy part. What was hard was the 2 years that I got so close in the publishing industry, where literally my agent and I would go out with my books and we get such amazing feedback, like, oh my gosh, Lyla is such a talented writer, the book is so good. But we also get comments from mostly white editors that were like, oh, we couldn't really connect with the story, or oh, like, you know, we try to pitch it to sales, but sales said it wasn't marketable. So we got a lot of those comments. So eventually we had 2 books that died on submission. So I wrote 2 more books. And so all that happened. And just when I was about to give up again, because at this point, I was privileged enough to be able to live at home after college for a bit to kind of pursue my dreams. But after the 2-year mark, my parents were starting to say, oh, you should get a real job, go back to school, study computer science. So at that point, I wrote the Minnie Kim books. And this sold at auction in 3 days. So it was kind of overwhelming. And then I really wanted, and I got lucky because I feel like during that time, it was because since 2014, there's this momentum that's building up in publishing where people were rallying for more diverse voices. I'm very grateful for that. But I also wanted to write like young adult because I when I first wanted to become an author, I was a teenager reading like books for teenagers. So I wrote I'll Be the One, which is my book about K-pop. And also I grew up listening to K-pop. So I also wanted to write a book about like, not just like a like Asian American girl, but like a queer Asian American girl, because when I was growing up, because I grew up Korean Catholic in the South, I was pretty much led to believe that I couldn't be queer and Korean at the same time because of the other stuff that I talked about earlier. So I really wanted to write a book about a bisexual Korean American girl who is comfortable with who she is, and but also she has fun. Like all my books, I know like what the passage I read was pretty serious, but the most of the book is more bubbly and fun, because in the end of the day, both books are about, both I'll Be the One and Flip the Script are about like pop culture and like, you know, fun stuff like K-pop and K-dramas. It's like about 50 BTS references in this book. But yeah, so those books I wrote in a few months after I sold Minnie Kim, because I really wanted to write YA, and these books also sold in a week at auction from major publishers, and I got a movie deal right after that. So it was kind of a whirlwind, and the last few years have also been a whirlwind, but I'm here. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because you have multiple books, and we decided to highlight obviously your YA book because it's
Right.
not out yet. But how did you decide to, because you kind of went into a little bit, but I wanted to ask you how you decided to, or if it was that easy decision, was that a difficult decision? Was it pretty easy transition to move from like, because your children's books are very different than your YA books. They're different audience, they're very different subjects. How did you make that transition? I know it took some time, but yeah, what was that like? And how'd you make that decision?
Yeah. Well, for me, I think the reason why it worked for me because my YA is kind of skews younger. It's like more middle school, high school. Where like upper YA is more like teenagers to adults. So my agent actually said that, oh, you have like a youthful voice. I feel like you could pull off like children's books if you wanted to. So, and also like, so I kind of had that idea like stirring in my mind. But also, I thought back to the books I read as a kid, the Junie B. Jones books, Ramona Quimby books, and those were relatively good books. But also, like, you know, Magic Treehouse books, those books, again, no no POC characters. I feel like in Ginny B. Jones, the only Asian character was a bus driver. But so I really wanted to write the kids' books, and in terms of like how I go back and forth, the job I had before I became a full-time author was I taught a lot of kids in varying age groups. So I would basically kind of shift my frame of mind of like, oh, what are some things that my kids would say, the one kids that are in third grade, second grade versus the kids who are in high school would say. So that kind of helped me a lot framing things when I was writing.
Totally different parts of identities for kids. And of course, given your teaching background, that makes sense that every grade is so different. They change so much. I used to teach too, so I totally get it. That's amazing. Lyla, we get to hear more from you in a little bit. Thank you so much. Clap for Lyla. I refilled my tea. Hopefully everyone got to refill their tea. And then as a reminder, if you hadn't got the chance to, you can wait till the end if you'd like. Check out everyone's books. It's on our event website, which the link has been dropped into the chat. And then the Google form to fill out for your Numi tea gift is at the bottom of the form. So you just scroll down to the very bottom, right by the books. There's a link to fill out the Google form. At this time, we are going to have a panelist discussion. We will start with myself and Keith, if you would like to ask questions too. We have a couple questions that we're going to kind of start with. And this is totally casual. So Lyla, Alister, Karen, whoever wants to jump in and answer the question first. If you each want to answer the question, do not feel like you have to you're compelled to answer every single question. We'll keep it pretty casual, and I'll let you know when we have when we're at our last questions. Again, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your books, sharing your journey. Just seeing the comments here. I do want to start with the first question. Because of the NAAAP 40th year anniversary, our theme is limitless leadership. I would love to put each of the authors on the spot if you have an answer for this question. The theme of NAAAP 40 is limitless leadership, as I said. And what does that mean to you for our API and LGBTQ plus community as leaders and trailblazers in the children's book industry? Anybody? Limitless leadership. It's such a
doing what you thought was not possible.
That's a really good answer. I love that. Is everyone from NAAP National writing this down?
Not having imposter syndrome, because we deserve it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good
That is a good one. Yeah.
You can keep rolling.
Yeah.
Anyone else pitch in?
All these creators, I love it.
Don't. What was that? There was like one that was like, you can only be yourself or something. Like you're the only one that can be yourself.
Yeah.
That was a bad one, right? It's
That was good.
No, that's a good one.
You don't criticize.
You're proud to be yourself.
Proud
Just
of
own it,
yourself.
Alister.
Yeah.
It came out how it did. It's fine.
Yeah.
We don't
that
judge
was
how
a good
things come
one.
out.
Iteration,
say
needs
It's
iteration.
similar to Alister. Like, don't be your own. Don't like unnecessarily limit yourself, right? So I think a lot of us like edit and try to not be our fullest self because we already anticipate what we think is going to be the feedback, and so yeah, just be your truest self. I know it's easier said than done, but
Yeah. There's also this quote I heard. I think it was like the creator of Rent, and one of his like famous quotes is like, "Are you choosing love or fear today?" And I think that's like very powerful. Of like, this is why we do what we do. It's just we're showing how we love ourselves and our culture and stuff through our words.
love that.
Thank you. I totally put you all three on the spot. I did not prompt them, y'all. So I should have talked to your publicist and made sure that you guys had question approval, because limitless leadership is a theme that we kept very open-ended for many reasons. At NAAAP, we believe in that we build leaders, and in part of we build leaders is the theme of limitless leadership of 2022. So thank you so much for rising to the occasion and giving beautiful, perfect answers the way that they are. I would love to take a question if Anthony, if you would like to come off mute and ask one of the questions from our audience, and then if someone from the audience does want to ask a question, just let us know in the chat so that I can prompt the panel here. But Anthony, do you have a question for us?
Yeah, please. So I know some of you had touched upon it, but one question that came up is just to hear a little bit more about your self-publishing route and kind of what that involves. So you all might have different experiences. I know some of you have shared already, but just want to hear more details about the self-publishing route. That came from Cecilia from Toronto. So thank you, Cecilia. Yeah, I'll let any of you take a stab at it.
I can go for, yeah, I think this is probably more for me and Alister, and I can go first. It's, I think it's really difficult. It's a lot of work, and, I think it looks different for everybody. In children's publishing, it's become more common, I think. A lot of people are actually self-publishing, which is, I think, great because it adds a lot of diversity to the landscape. But there's a lot of resources out there too, a lot of like Facebook groups of authors who are self-published, who are going that route. And I think there's just a lot to learn. So my piece of advice would be give yourself some runway, give yourself like a few months, even like a year. I mean, it took me a long time to write my book, to just learn the landscape, learn how to like writing, first of all, for kids, because people think it's really easy, but it's actually not. It's really hard. Everyone thinks like, oh, there's only a few words, it's only 30 pages. I can write this. It's actually much harder to like write, concisely and for children too. And get mentors in the space, reach out to people who are in the space because you can learn from their mistakes. There are certainly mistakes that you can make. Find an editor that you really trust to edit your work, find people to critique your work. And then there's a whole business aspect of it, which is like hiring an illustrator, where are you going to manufacture your books? How are you going to sell your books? Because part of the self-publishing thing is that people think they can just write a book and just put it on Amazon. And I'm sure Alister can attest to this. It takes a lot more than that. It's really like, how are you going to sell your book? It'll just sort of sit out in the internet if you don't do anything. So a lot of it is just the writing aspect of it, creating the book, and then the marketing part of it is huge. So that's the big piece that you want to know and figure out before you jump into the process.
It's really good advice, Karen. Go ahead, Alister.
I think for me, the biggest thing I learned was to be kind to yourself, because it was so easy to get, bogged down in all the things that you have to deal with. And for me, it was just like exactly what Karen said. You just have to focus. If you want to be an author, it's like focus on writing, the damn thing first, right? Like if you don't have that, you can't go anywhere, right? And it's like you have to have a really good foundation. The connections thing was a really good one that Karen brought up, because it was just like literally when I was like, I'm gonna go do this route, I was like, now what? Like there was just like you can like I remember spending maybe like I don't know, like weeks just like researching on the whole self-publishing, the whole like thing that after you finish writing, like what are you supposed to do? And there's like so many different platforms you can publish on. Like I personally did the Amazon route, but there's just like so many different ways you can approach this. And yeah, like there's like actually lots of communities that are asking the same questions as well. And there are people like I mainly focus on the writing part, but there are also people who are wanting to illustrate for children's books. And once you can connect with those people, there's just like it's almost like a merge of just like, let's do this together, Ray. And I think what I love about self-publishing was the fact that I got to, in a way, control every little thing. Like I said, I got to put like myself in the book. I got to like pick the colors. I got to do a lot of that stuff. So it was just like rewarding in the end, but it's definitely like an uphill battle, I feel like.
That actually is perfect segue, because I believe, Anthony, you have a question from the audience as well about illustrators.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually really quick, Lyla, do you have anything? I know you talked a lot about your self-publishing journey. Anything you wanted to add before we segue into the next audience question?
Well, I'm not self-published, I'm traditionally published.
That's what she's like, I'll just sit here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did you think
so-
about getting self-published, Lyla? I mean, you're pretty young. I guess
Yeah,
it'd be hard
no,
to-
I think
yeah.
I didn't have money or any connections, so I was like, you know, it's free, so I might as well just throw my book at them and see what sticks.
That's amazing.
It's free to
I love
scam
it.
people, so
Love it. Okay, so Karen and Alister, you brought this up, so it's a good segue to this question from Lily Huang. Thank you. So she had a question about how you connect with your illustrators specifically. So I know you give it a little hint of it, but yeah, love to hear more.
Yeah, I can go. The illustrator, how I connected with my illustrator, I just reached out to her. So, you know, I basically scoured the internet, agents who represent illustrators, websites, you know, I think I had in mind sort of a style already for the book. And a lot of illustrators get booked out, you know, years in advance sometimes, because illustrating a book will take anywhere from like 4 months to 6 months to 8 months. I mean, it just depends. And sometimes illustrators are working on a lot of different projects at the same time. So it was a matter of timing, who was available, who I really liked, and someone that would be able to work within, you know, the budget that I had for illustration. And it worked out great. I love Basia. I wish she could. She should be on this panel, actually. She's great. She's a children's book illustrator. So.
Yeah, like same thing for me. My illustrator is Iana Mariana. She, I found her through Instagram, actually. It's the same, like I scoured all of the internet for like an illustrator. And, you know, me being a designer, I felt like I also I had a look I wanted. And it was just mainly just finding someone who understood my vision. I think that was the big thing for me. And if we didn't, I kind of approached it like in a way like a job interview. It was kind of funny. Tech has changed me, but like it was just like oh, like, you know, how do you work with people, like work with authors, you know, stuff like that. And it was very nice to, like, in a way, handpick my own illustrator. I think that was like a very beautiful thing I got to do, and it was a very collaborative effort. And it was just very nice to like I was saying earlier, that there's tons of people who want to illustrate for children's books. And I think people always forget that, like Karen was saying, like it takes time. Like you can't just hand them a manuscript and then magically a week later it's done. It does take, you know, iteration. You know, what my illustrator did was like, I drew, you know, 6 different characters of you. Which one did you like best? And it was like, let me take a week to think about this. So there's like a lot of time commitment with that as well.
You're like, he has to have a bowl haircut. Like,
Yeah.
imperative.
There was 6 different iterations of the bowl haircut.
I love that made the cut. Oh, cut. I love it. Lyla, do you have anything to share about your illustrators? Did you use different ones, or did you use the same?
Oh yeah,
your children's
well,
books,
yeah, the same one. My YA books is actually a photographer, but I was actually gonna say, for the Minnie Kim series, I have my illustrator. Her name is Dong Ho, and she's based in Vietnam, and she makes these beautiful illustrations. She actually also did the Eyes That Kiss in the Corners by Johanna Ho. So she illustrated those books too. And I will say, if you are interested in breaking into illustrating, Instagram is the way to go, because I feel like a lot of illustrators are being discovered off of Instagram, or if you are looking for an illustrator, because I have a lot of friends who are published in the YA space too, who have beautiful cover designs, and the publishers found those illustrators through Instagram. So that's where it is, apparently.
Do you want to say anything about, did you find yourself your models? Because I know you have I know you got to meet your model for I'll Be the One. I totally follow you on Instagram, obviously, and I watch all your stuff, but you got to meet your model, which like is like the most perfect influencer ever for your book.
Well, I didn't get to pick her, but
okay.
my team actually found her through Instagram. So they reached out to her. So
she is the character in real life.
Definitely.
Like,
yeah.
Super cool. Thank you. So Anthony has a couple more questions from the audience. Does anybody from the audience want to come off of mute and has a question, a burning question they'd like to ask our panels before I go back to Anthony? Everyone's so shy. Totally fine. I just wanted to give the space in case someone wants to say something. Anthony, I believe you have some more from the audience from the chat.
Yeah, actually still tied to the illustrator question. Cecilia, thank you for asking. Would you really give like what a rough estimate dollar amount to hire an illustrator would be?
In my experience, it ranges a lot. But I will caveat that by saying, I think there is a certain element of you get what you pay for, if that makes sense. So there are, I think illustrators that you can, hire for pretty cheap. And I would say, I mean, this is just in my experience. So, Alister, jump in if you're like, I totally found something different. But like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 for a picture book. For me, and I'm happy to disclose this, like I paid my illustrator 10,000, and my other illustrators that we're working with is all 10,000 and up. So that's just the starting point for that. So as you can see, there's a big range.
Yeah, I think also different illustrators charge in a way differently. So like my illustrator was charging per page. So that also counted in, the total amount. And depending on, I know some illustrators also charge, according to iteration as well. So like how many times the back and forth you needed, that is also a huge thing. So yeah, Karen said it's exactly around that that price range, where it is depending on the illustrator. It is exactly like you can easily go on Fiverr and pay $100 to someone and they could illustrate your like 50-page book, for example, versus paying a more premium. And to me, I feel like because I think my background in design, I feel like you should pay what the illustrator is worth. And that's just how I always feel like it should be.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I used to be a makeup artist, and like, don't negate like what your what your artist feels that they're worth to be paid. Like there's so much that goes into it. And like you're saying too about the iterations, like I remember I used to charge people for like practice wedding, like that's all my time and my kit,
Mm-hmm.
So I think you both bring up a really good point. It's like yes, thank you, Karen, for sharing actual amounts. I mean, that was awesome of you. You absolutely didn't have to do that. Thank you so much. That really helps people to understand, like, let's just all be like honest and equitable about this. But I think that's a whole chunk of another discussion of like what creators are worth and what that means in the API community, like asking for what you are worth. So I will not jump into that. We can take about 2 more questions. I think Anthony has 1 or 2 more, and Keith, you might have 1, and then we'll go into announcements and stuff.
Yeah, there's an earlier question from Sophia Toe from Atlanta, so thank you. Just a question on locations that you have done readings at, like libraries, bookstores, et cetera, et cetera. What are some good examples of places if you've done those?
I just did a reading yesterday at schools. I was invited to a LAUSD school, so the Los Angeles School District, a big elementary school, and we were in their library with their librarian, and we did KTK 1 and first and second. So I've done a couple of school visits. Those are really fun because it's just, the kids are hilarious. I mean, I just like, first of all, they love the book. We do a reading and then we do a Q&A, and the questions that they have are endless. It's so fun. I mean, it like drains me because I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of energy. Like seriously, teachers are like, bow down to them. I don't know how they do it because I was dead after that. I was like, oh my God, this is so tiring.
Wait, you have to tell us, what was the weirdest question? What was the most, like, when I used to teach, like, what is the most random question you got? Can you think of one?
One child was like, it was so cute because it's like their world is their world, right? They don't understand like what is publishing. How do you make a book? So they said, the librarian's name was Miss Heather, and she said, so did Miss Heather help you write? Did Miss Heather write it? I was like, No, like, so there's some questions about, like, they didn't know that I was the person who wrote it, even though I said I'm the author, I wrote this
Who
book,
are you?
and they like couldn't get their head wrapped around it. And the funniest questions were like, how did you make the book? And I was like, oh, so I had to like explain that you write words and then someone illustrates it and then you print it on a paper at a printing press. And then they have, it's just like, it's really cute.
That is so
But then
stinking cute.
events and haven't really done any in person. We're starting to do more of that. There's like a pop-up event in LA I'm doing a reading at. SoCal Kids Museum, which is in Pasadena. I'm doing reading there for API month. So yeah, just different venues.
Lyla, you've done both, right? You did some in person as well as you've been doing digital as well, right?
Yeah, so my books came out, the mini Kim books came out like right before COVID in early 2020.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of festivals and school visits in person, but then everything shut down. So now I do mostly virtual school visits, but it's starting to open up. So I have a few in-person ones scheduled events as well. I was gonna say, in terms of like questions that kids ask, I've got a lot of like weirdly profound ones. Like, for example, my last event, one of the kids asked me, "Are you happy?" And I'm like, I was like, "Am I happy?"
Straight to my tea.
Yeah. So I was like, "Wait, am I
So
happy?"
funny.
Externally, I was like, "Yeah, of course, I'm living my dream, like live my best life, whatever." But internally, I was like, "Wait, am I happy?"
It's like the hardest question in the
I
world.
know. So that was one really funny question, and then the other one that I got was, wait, so if Mindy moved from California to Florida like you did, isn't Mindy you? And then I was like, no. I mean, it's based on my experiences, but I was born in Korea, not California. Like Mindy, we're totally different people. So it was really funny to see the kind of questions that they ask. A lot of smart questions. A lot of smart
So stinking cute. I know, Alister, this might have to be our last question because I actually want to also, I want you three to think. Go ahead and I'm going to ask Alister real quick because I know you've been doing quite a few stuff recently. Like Alister's been booming recently. I follow all of y'all. And I know this because I talk to Alister like every day. But I want y'all to think about your wish list of where you want to read and who you want to read to and tell everybody in the audience. But Alister, you go real quick, scratching your head. Alister, do you want to tell us where you've recently been reading? Because you've been so busy. And then we'll ask Lyla and Karen too.
Yeah. So I've been doing two different things. Like one, I'm also reading my book to kids. And secondly, I'm actually been talking about a lot about API mental health and how using food to reclaim ourselves. And I had this huge passion already, working in the DEI space. So like I was actually started to connect with, API therapist, and we just like hit it off. And yesterday I had an IG live to just talk about that and just how, what this whole experience meant to me. And, in terms of, we all covered it a little bit earlier, just to talking about like our how we grew up and stuff. But it was just like so amazing that I get to talk about food and what it means to me and how much I love eating all the time. It's just like so great to have that language now, I think, as an adult, to really identify how I was feeling as a kid, as an adult. But yeah,
Embrace it. Yeah. That's
embrace
amazing.
it for sure.
What's
I'm
your
brave now? Yeah.
Do I need to give you a minute? Do you know where you do
I
you have a
was
wish list?
randomly thinking it would be cool to do like invite everyone here to dim sum, and I could read my book. We could all spend the
Yes.
lazy Susan together.
Yes.
I
For
love
sure.
that. Karen, Lyla, do you have a wish list high in the sky? Something you're like, oh, I want to read my book to this person, this audience, at this place.
Mine is very really specific, and that's
Love it.
LA Festival Books, because it's actually hosted every year on my alma mater, USC's campus. So I remember I went there like every year as a student, just like hoping that I could be a published author someday. So it'd be really cool to go back and as an author and be like, hey, I used to go to school here.
I did it.
Yeah,
I was gonna say something else, but yeah.
Yeah.
Karen?
I don't know if I have one. I mean, just to like more kids that either,
Yeah.
kids that are API or not, I mean, part of like
Yeah.
the really fun part about reading to kids is about, about a book about an Asian American main character and food is that all the questions about it, and like, I just would love to read to more children. It's actually been one of the most rewarding parts about it is just talking to kids about it. And festival of books, I would love to do that. I'm stealing Lila's idea. Yeah.
That's amazing. I could talk to y'all forever. I'm sure we could get a million more questions, and I'm so sorry if we didn't get to answer your questions. I know we had a few more, but we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna thank Lyla and Karen and Alister, and they were all generous enough to jump on my idea of shouting out other API creators and authors, as you will see here on the slide provided. If you have to go, I totally get it. We're just gonna, a couple more minutes of announcements. But if you want to take a screenshot of this slide, we will also put it on the event website after so that you can Google each one of these people. Please support this amazing community, whether you want to be a part of it or you just want to promote it. We're so excited that we're able to celebrate AP authors and creators and the LGBTQ plus space. Keith is going to finish with a couple announcements for everybody, and then we'll, if you wanted to come off camera, we'll take a group picture. We're definitely gonna take a group picture with the authors, so y'all hang tight as well. Keith, a couple announcements.
Yes. All right. Well, without further, I just say thank you again. Thank you again to our authors, our esteemed guests tonight. We couldn't have done this without you. It's been a long time coming, so thank you. And to everybody else, please make sure to click on the links in the chat for book purchasing. You got a cliffhangers of a music bush, let's just say, to go with the food reference of these wonderful books. So please consider purchasing the books. The link in the chat box, as well as enter for a book drawing and get your own tea delivered while supplies last. So also generously provided by Numi Organics Tea. So yes, make sure to go to our site and enter for the drawing. And in lieu of a survey, if you could just drop in the chat box or direct message me a rating of 1 to 5, 5 being not satisfied, 1 being not satisfied, 5 being highly satisfied. We'd love to get your input on that. Of course, let's keep in touch with through our socials and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it, we're on there. And then also to be informed that we have an upcoming podcast season. It's season 3 of our podcast called Pride Talk. It is the service that we provide through NAAAP Pride. And season 3 is featuring the talented actor and musical talent, Telly Leung. So that season is dropping soon. And we also have some great NAAP 40 events coming up as well. So check us out on naap.org. Yes, once again, thank you again. Thank you again for joining. Have a great weekend. Wishing everybody a very thoughtful and meaningful Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Thank you
Starts
again.
tomorrow.
Yes, starts May 1st.
We have
yes.
many more events at NAAP National. So please stay a part of the conversation. This is how we find each other and celebrate together.
There we go. That does it. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everyone.
Woo woo.